It's a couple of minutes past the hour now. So I think that we'll start off because we've got an amazing lineup today, and I'm really, really excited to introduce everyone. So a quick introduction from me. I'm Georgia, co-founder of RegTech Talks. This is the second session in our Agritech series. Hi, Richard. Nice to see you again. Everyone, please feel free to chat in the chat function. And our event today, we have a really, really top quality, stellar lineup that I'm really, really proud to present. So a little bit of an introduction to RegTech Talks. We started this initiative over 2 years ago now to create conversations and discussion around how we can create efficiencies within heavily regulated industries. There's probably, other than something like law or finance, there's not a lot of industries out there that are as regulated as the production of food. It's so important to absolutely everything that we do as a species, and creating efficiencies using innovation, seeing some of the technologies and just absolutely cutting edge tech that's going into the production of food to make things more sustainable for us as a species and as a planet has been super inspiring over the last couple of years. The amount of innovation, inspiration and perspiration that's gone into producing some of the stuff that we're seeing now, it just has to be, we've got to put our credit where it's due, and we have such an amazing lineup now. I'm just going to go straight into who we have on the panel. We've got Charles, he's an agritech entrepreneur from Photonix, who's going to speak first. We're then going to move on to Anita, and she works for a company called Agravy. We're then going to move on to Nicole, who's not turned up to the panel yet, but we're waiting for her to join. And she works at Cultinova. And then we're going to finish off with Ben, who is going to give us a bit of an insight into the next generation of farmers who we've just been talking about from the Hartpury Agritech Centre and Digital Innovation Farm. So without any further ado, Charles, do you mind jumping straight into your presentation for today? Give us a little bit of an intro to who you are and what you're going to talk about. Perfect. We can see your screen if you want to just go off mute. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Georgia. Welcome, everyone. And as you said, my name's Charles Vase. I'm a specialist in agricultural diagnostics. I worked in research first as a machine vision engineer before setting up my own company in 2018. I'll give you a brief overview of who we are, what we do, and what we see, what's our sort of vision for this industry. Photonix really positions itself as an ability provider. We focus on addressing the information gap that appears between the crop health and decisions that are made on farm. And over the past 3 years, we've operated as a sort of the Fitbit of farming and really looked to enable food production and focusing on the impact of tasks, and then allowing sort of data-driven timing and application to improve both its sustainability and how economical the practice is. Just to set some context, I mean, there's a big call for a step change in innovation in agriculture. There has been for some time, but at the moment, it really focuses on return on investment for farmers. We are expecting more nutritional food, we're expecting lower prices of food, and we're expecting more sustainable food production. And that really puts quite a pressure, particularly with sort of changing climatic and environmental things on producers. And really the problem is agriculture is very like medicine. It requires some quite skilled specialists to monitor plant health, often walking kilometers of fields every day and looking for very small symptoms of signs of things that can impact on the plant, such as disease. And many of these are not visible to the human eye very easily, and failure to catch such early signs can have massive impacts. And we work with sectors that have losses up to 30%, despite quite proactive use of on-farm pesticides. The real problem, as we see it, is there's a huge amount of information out there. There's a huge amount of information from aerial imagery, and it covers large areas. There's quite intelligent machinery with all sorts loaded with sensors. There's smartphone and handheld devices sort of wielded by producers and experts. But yet at the moment, there seems to be a failure of insight to make significant impacts on farm. And despite misconceptions, farmers are not Luddites. They do adopt technology, but only when there's a real clear return on investment. And technology is often, when it comes along, is very expensive, and margins in farming are tight. So it's key to try and demonstrate not only a product, but a business model that fits amongst that. We Photenix believes that actually improving agriculture operations while striving towards these sort of regenerative practices is hindered by a lack of tools tailored to plant material. We've seen lots of pieces of equipment and technology come across from other sectors, but actually I think the sector in itself needs to benefit from some items that are developed there and then. The capability that is possible on farm now, it's moved from looking at a field, moving down to from regions. We even hear about sort of individual plant imaging, but actually it needs to go beyond that. It needs to go to sort of individual leaves, individual areas. And what that enables is the type of laboratory analysis that's been done in sort of breeding industries and other areas for some time, and to give impact on farm to producers. I mean, the example I give on this slide is quite a nice one. It's a rapeseed plant, and there's a fungal disease called light leaf spot, which is hugely impactful in the sector. And the problem is it's very difficult to detect. It can go for months without being detected, and that's solely because of the type of technology and the resolution that is required. And it's one of the key ones that we set out. In fact, it was one of the first ones we set out to solve, to demonstrate the capability that is possible. Is this really expensive? No, it doesn't have to be. The technology that we focused on, and that there are alternatives that come at different ways, is using cameras similar to ones in a smartphone and LED lighting, and really only looking at particular applications and embedding it within farm equipment. So we flash lights effectively, and you've got a nice video up and coming with an example of that. And what we do is we use cameras to record how that reflects, and that information can be delivered there and then to producers to make a decision of whether to spray or whether to do a different type of treatment on farm. The approach has lots of applications, and the technologies that's available in the sector have lots of applications, and that's through is looking at yield so that you can improve how, knowing what's for retailers' demands, make sure you can get the thresholds to change the sort of nitrogen or other elements to make sure you've got the protein content so you can sell to the major retailers, right through to complex things like monitoring disease, detecting pests, even in controlled environments, worrying about drought and irrigation. And there are really sensitivities. What we really like to do is use consumer electronics to digitize the agronomist's eye and take that capability that is possible elsewhere and enable it in a sector that's really hitting a push at the moment with labor availability amidst the sort of pandemic and political restrictions of farm labor that we've relied on for so long. The model is something that we're quite keen on, and I think it was the networking group Agritechie that championed it first. But there's a model of one agriculture, which is where there's been a siloed approach. There's some giant companies in the sector, but actually the solutions only really work when they're integrated together, and it's with that sort of mindset that us and not only us, there's plenty that are looking to do it, is actually connect in terms of the business model. So we offer a service to our main customers, who are sort of robotics and machinery providers, but we also work with the likes of breeders, so some large breeding company, to improve the type of plants that will be coming on field in the next seasons, and even enabling that access to that information and that data to the producers. If everything was done separately and things were reproduced, the margins add up, and it doesn't become a viable business model or at value to the producer, and that's quite key. And we're seeing these sort of open innovation come across into the sector. The roadmap is interesting. We were a university spin out, and we had some great collaborations in terms of demonstrating a concept and getting feasibility. And actually, before the company even started in 2018, we had a number of proof of concepts and sort of patents filed alongside some quite good companies. But there's a lot of people out there that were willing to do proof of concept work. There was lots of early adopters, particularly producers and farmers. And where we're at now is really dealing with partnerships, enabling customers. We've got example coming up next of a great company called Saga Robotics, the Norwegian robotics companies that work to enable soft fruit production. And there's a center in Lincoln called the Lincoln Institute of Agri-Food, who definitely worth checking out in terms of access to knowledge and to experts, and really showcasing the type of technology as possible. And at the moment, we're looking at taking what we've done in the UK over the past few years and moving into Europe, because that's really where we can start to make an impact at scale. There's an example of the type of work that we've done is working in the strawberry sector, taking those capabilities that I mentioned on board to other people's process. We provide that capability, and Saga go out and take it and wield it on the farm with the likes of Berry Gardens, the biggest berry consortium in the UK, and it really not only targets their resource, but also allows some quite novel processes, some new sustainable practices. There's lots of things coming out that enable treatment without the use of synthetic chemicals, but they're expensive and they need to be applied at the right time. And only through this added level of information can we provide that sort of detection. We believe that agriculture is an art, rather than a science, and it takes some sort of interpretation and molding, both with technology and the level of information that's out there, both through plant science and agronomy. And we believe that actually there's a shared value required to address both the sustainability but also the profitability issues that's there in the modern food systems that we've created. I've stuck my contact details up on there. Please, if any of the things are interested you today, or you want to discuss anything about the sector in general, please do reach out and get in touch.
Amazing, thanks, Charles. It really super first impression to kick off the show today. I really appreciate that. And I love a university spin out. We work with quite a few university spin-out tech companies, and it's so interesting to see young, fresh ideas disrupting established industries, or even younger people being interested in those more established industries. A lot of the time you see the big companies servicing big companies, when it should be those startups, it should be those disruptors coming in and creating more innovation. I also love that one agriculture mindset. I really feel like collaboration is at the heart of innovation. And I love that how in tech, everything, developers always have that open source mentality. And I love how that's bleeding into agriculture, because the technology itself is bleeding into it. So that mindset of an open source, non-siloed approach is super, super refreshing. So thanks for that, Charles. If anyone does have any questions, please put them into the Q&A section onto Zoom, and we can go over them at the end of this session. I'm going to move on to Anita from Agrivi next up, and she's going to talk about how agriculture is the backbone of food safety and sustainability. So I'll let you take that away, please. Anita?
Thank you, Georgia. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Anita, and I work at Agrivi, a company that is focused on changing the way food is produced globally. Also, this year I became a farmer because I love food and I want to feel the whole scope of producing it and to see how it is actually to be in farmer's booth. In Agrivi, I'm responsible for marketing. So for me, it also makes perfect sense to be in farmer's booths and check it out how the whole process is working. Today, I will talk a little bit about benefits of digitizing agriculture and how we are doing that. So for the start, let's take an example, an apple. A lot of people loves them and eat them. They're healthy, and at least that's what I was taught when I was a little girl. Like, you need to eat a lot of fruit, you need to eat an apple. But today, when I know a lot of different things, I'm asking myself, is that actually true? Apples are treated with more than 20 different chemicals during the whole life cycle of production. So when I became aware of that, I started thinking, yes, I love apples, really love them, but are they really good for me and for my body? Also, I'm aware that unsafe food causes 600 million cases of diseases, and that in the end leads to 420,000 deaths each year. That's real, like, terrifying. Is it okay that the food that we eat actually destroys us and we need the food to eat? Regulars know that. That is why actually also EU brought the Green Deal. That's new strategy for the whole crop production, because the focus needs to be on the end produce, what it is. And the focus is also for 2030 to decrease this chemical use by 50% and be able to increase the organic farming by 25%. Today, also private companies are focused in bringing good practices, and also they want to make sure that we all eat healthy and nutritious food, and what is responsible sourcing, and how they are trying to find the best food that they are actually then maybe doing through food processing and putting it to the markets. And one of standards says, if I, as a farmer, cannot do preventative spraying, I actually need to monitor what is happening on the field and then act according to the all alerts. So not just to do something just preventative, because then it will be sprayed more. So if I get alert, risk is happening, then I'm spraying, then I'm doing the measure. So why am I talking all about this? Because of digitalization, it can help. Digitalization of agriculture and the whole cycle production. This is its role, to do something to prevent what is happening in the real life. We at Agrivi ensure food safety. Companies today are bringing digital solutions to farms. So farmers can get through digital applications, through digital software, real-time insights. They can actually monitor through farm management software what is happening on their field in this real time. So they're monitoring weather conditions, and then they get alarms. If there is a risk, like I said, then I will, as a farmer, take an action and do the spraying. In best case scenario, what we think it's really, really great, if a farmer is putting everything into all the information in the software, in the end, it's possible that the system gives you the full traceability of food production. So you know what was happening in each part of the production. Let me go to the second example of really how digitalization is helping, because how digitizing agriculture is doing good today. Sweet corn in a can. Again, I love to talk about it because I'm a big fan of it. And I know that a lot of people are eating sweet corn and adding it to a lot of salads because it's really great food. We go to store as customers, we buy it. And we're not thinking about how it is produced, how did it actually got into this one can. To secure premium quality standards, the company that is producing sweet corn in a can has really short time from harvesting until transportation and ensuring that the corns are ending up in a can. Usually takes only like 4 hours. It's really short time. So when we look into this 4 hours to make sure that everything is in process done, there's no time for quality testing. You cannot know if everything you put in a can is really good quality. So what the company does, they check it afterwards. They take a sample, check it out, and see how much was like residues, how high it is. So if it's too high, they need to throw away the whole batch. So it's okay for them because they're used to it, like that's what they need to do. Maybe consumers are not thinking about it, but it's so much food going to waste. waste. And the thing is, it can be prevented, especially if it's monitored upfront. Here comes again digitalization, digital software. So when farmers spray, we as a company that is providing farm management software have knowledge base that is integrated into the system. And actually if you go and you need to spray, you spray it, and you spray a particular product, and you get actually alert when is it safe to harvest. If the product is not safe to harvest after more than 30 days, at the moment when you want to go to harvest, you have really great dashboards. You check it out and you see, okay, this is not ready for harvest. I need to wait for 3 more days actually to be able to harvest it. So we bring insights, and this is the way how we reduce food waste. Food. Today, there is a lot of people talking also about plant-based diet, because we all want to eat nutritious food. And that is important, but how to actually ensure that? That's always the question. We see here standards for avocado, but how someone who is resourcing food from different farmers can make sure that he gets the same nutrition produced food from each farmer if farmers are not aware of how to produce it. Farmers are thinking how to produce enough food to survive, enough food to be able to get money in the end of the season and to provide for their families. But they're not thinking today about nutrition, but how we can check that out, how we can make sure that they know. This is like the view how it looks today. Farmers are not thinking about it. They're just doing production on open fields. Here comes again digitizing agriculture. It's about best practices. It's about knowing who does the best food nutrition production in your supply chain if you're a big company, and then you can get this knowledge about producing nutritious food and push it through the system to other farmers, so you are assured that in the end of the season you will get the best premium qualities. And this is the last part that I will talk about today, that we all need to be aware about agriculture and how it's actually responsible for 23% greenhouse gas emissions, because it's really that 1.3 billion people are working in agriculture today. And we need to talk also about climate and what kind of effects agriculture has on the climate. We are all aware about regenerative of farming, how to do it, how to switch to it, but it's not so easy. It's easier to talk than just to tell everyone you need to do it now this way. But through a software, through digitizing agriculture, you can push knowledge to farmers. You can tell farmers how to do it, so they will be more aware of these facts. So this is what we do also at Agrivi. We help farmers to save climate. For the end, we at Agrivi impact 12 out of 17 sustainable development goals. That's something we are really proud of, and we like to say that whatever we are doing in digital world, it has to have impact in the end in real life. So we make decisions every day, and we have to be aware as human beings that every decision we make today, it needs to have an impact to 7 generations later. And we are here today, and we have to be responsible that it's actually a good impact. So let's build the better future together.
Thanks, Anita. Super, super interesting stuff. And I think that what's really interesting is kind of you need to put yourself in the shoes of that food production person, farmers, and just think about the pressure that's coming at you from all sides, because we have those regulations that are there to keep us safe, but food waste is such a massive problem. So you've got the pressure coming from, okay, well, you have to stop using as many pesticides, but at the same time your yield has to be the same, and if it's not up to these standards, then you're not going to have as much that you're able to sell. And then you have the layer of, okay, well, is your food as nutritious as it could be? And then you've got the sustainability layer on top of that as well. And I feel like there's pressure coming from every single situation. It's like they can't win. But the implementation of platforms like yourselves coming in and trying to diffuse that pressure cooker that these people are under is hopefully going to make for a better working environment, better production methods, and higher yields and more nutritious food for everyone at the end of the day. So I really appreciate your input there, Anita. Nicole, we're going to come on to you next if you're here. I know that you're late joining, so I appreciate you coming on. And Nicole is going to talk about future-proofing indoor agriculture and increased sustainability, profitability, and compliance. So kind of the things that I just touched on there. So that's quite a nice segue into your piece there, Nicole. So I'll let you take that away.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Georgia. I don't know whether you can see me, but you can see the slides, I guess.
We can see the slides.
Okay, that's great. Can you see it? But you can't see me. Right, okay, well, we'll have to make do with the slides for now. So thank you very much for those really interesting presentations. And yeah, sorry for being late, but I've been having technical difficulties, which is quite apt being here talking about technology. I always find it quite funny when things don't work than when they're supposed to do. So as Georgia just mentioned, I'm going to also join the digitization angle, but I'll be focusing on controlled environment agriculture, which is what we do. So we do something very similar to Agrivi, but mainly focusing on the indoor farming aspect. So I think I can keep this quite brief in the interest of time. I think we all know why we're here and why we're talking about what we're talking about: increasing urbanization, the need to grow more with less, complex supply chains, the fact that 2/3 of the world population will be residing in cities, and we have to find novel ways to grow our food in the future. Now, controlled environment agriculture offers many very exciting possibilities to become a supplier, a reliable supplier of safe, nutritious, locally grown food. However, at the moment, there are still a few challenges, but looking towards the future and also looking towards what's happening on the ground now, or in the farms rather, we have a growing variety. So we're no longer just talking leafy greens and salads. We are growing various types of vegetables, and also for medical applications and proteins, alternative proteins, which, as we all know, is something that, in the interest of climate, we all need to find alternatives to meat, which will still kind of give us the nutritional value that we need. Moving on, if it does. So controlled environment agriculture has many interesting opportunities, but there still remain a number of challenges, mainly in terms of the economic and ecological sustainability. That was too fast. And also in terms of the integration into supply chains. So basically, what do we do at Cultinova? We supply monitoring, control, and data solutions, so hardware, software solutions. And we try and adopt a holistic approach to indoor farming, making sure we can monitor and optimize the growth environment, optimize the growth factors such as LED lighting and nutrient management, and also optimize the operations. So we think, and our clients think so too, that there is a lots of opportunity for optimization in the process flows in indoor farms. So as the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. So measuring and data acquisition and data management and data analytics are the backbone of what we do, and are the backbone of what we need in order to optimize efficiencies. In terms of opportunities for IoT in controlled environment agriculture, and particularly in the process flows, this diagram here is by no means exhaustive, because we can optimize so many different aspects in an indoor farm, going beyond the aforementioned environmental and lighting conditions, where our technology obviously finds the most obvious application, let's say. You can also reap fantastic benefits and significant benefits in terms of financial gains if you increase the production density. So you actually increase the yield by per square meter, because you're obviously stacking it vertically. So you're optimizing the actual area, the net production area. You can also influence the time to harvest. So these are quite quite obvious things, and obviously collecting data and automating with IoT-based technology makes all of this a lot easier and a lot more efficient. In terms of certification and traceability, they're also very, I think at the moment, still underutilized opportunities in terms of optimizing traceability in controlled environment agriculture, and also in terms of the certification. And I'll detail this a little bit further later on. And collecting data on potential diseases, so spotting diseases early through imaging technology, for example, and also nutrient optimization through monitoring and controlling the nutrient delivery throughout the growth cycle, and predicting all of this to predict yield. These are all things that can be aided significantly through collecting the right data, and I would emphasize the right kind of data. So to sum up, the opportunities for digitalization in indoor agriculture are reliant on mainly automation, machine-to-machine communication, the Internet of Things, and also data analysis and AI. So all these things that Anita has also touched on. Well, the risk factors, I mean, I had a quick look on Google earlier, where I just Googled food recalls, recent food recalls, and I think it came up with over 900,000 hits. And I think this is something that obviously, if you optimize the environment for plant growth, you also potentially optimize the environment for pathogens and for diseases to spread. So in order to make sure that you always reach the consistent quality, which indoor farming tends to promise, we need to have guidance on quality control and food safety. And of course, they do exist to a certain degree, but a lot of the standards don't tend to be based on indoor farming environments. They actually tend to be based on field-based agriculture, so traditional conventional agriculture. And I'm going to talk about this a little later on, why I know this and what experience I have in this regard. I think there's also quite a significant gap in terms of having data on good indoor agricultural practice. While there is a plethora of data on good agricultural practice for the open field agriculture, there is a significant lack of reliable data for indoor agriculture. So you can tell that controlled environment agriculture, or vertical farming in specifically, is still a reasonably young industry due to, if you look at the lack of standards and the lack of reliable data. And as I mentioned earlier, the integration into current supply chains is also still a challenge. Now, I mentioned that we've been working towards supporting standards, and specifically I'm also the European Vice Chair of the Industry Association based in Brussels, called the Farm Tech Society, and together with the Farm Tech Society, my company, and the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, we've been working alongside Global Gap for the last year. I'm sure you all know Global Gap. So we've been working alongside Global Gap for the last year to work on the revision of their current standard, so the version 6 of their standard for fruit and vegetables, to include the elements of controlled environment agriculture. So you can see here the representatives of a company called Infarm, which I think most of you know. It's a German vertical farming company, very successful all over the world. And they were certified, they were one of the first indoor farms to be certified by Global Gap. And in doing so, they actually realized that the field-based quality and standard questions that they were asking in their checklists for the version 5 of their standard weren't really applicable to indoor agriculture. So this is where they turned to FarmTech Society and the supporting companies to provide insights into what questions should be asked in controlled environment agriculture, and this is what we've been doing for the last year. There's also something happening across the pond in the US by the CA Food Safety Coalition. They have a specific focus on food safety, and they also noticed the gap in standards for controlled environment agriculture, specifically with regards to food safety. So there's some interesting, I think they even recently developed a label specifically for controlled environment agriculture to make sure that the declaration actually ends up with the consumer as well, in terms of saying that this is a safe product, safe to eat. So yeah, this is just to basically show you quickly what it is that we do in terms of hardware and software. So we tailor our hardware to make sure that the solutions that we deliver are actually fit for the farming purpose and fit for collecting the right kind of data. We don't believe that there's a standard solution that you can export all over the world, because we believe that whilst there is certain sort of quite common data that you tend to collect in any indoor farming operation, the way that you then translate this data into process optimization is very specific to each farm, and also the way that the technology needs to be laid out and which data needs to be gathered. This is why I mentioned initially that we have quite a similar product to Agrivi, but very focused on the indoor agriculture field, in terms of using digitalization and data to optimize the farm management, but going beyond just sort of the traditional farm management. We really dig deep and try and find a solution and work together with the client to really optimize what they need, in terms of also giving them a tailored solution. So these are a few examples to show that it doesn't matter which crop we go for, and it doesn't matter which size we go for, so we can go small and we can go large. But the most important thing is that with digitalization, I think we can really open doors for small scale farming as well as larger scale farming, if we provide solutions that are scalable, flexible, and and not overly expensive, and collect the data and the insights required to generate insights and intelligence, and build intelligence over time. So thank you very much. I raced through this a little bit in the interest of time. I hope this was okay, and sorry about the camera. I'm gonna hopefully be able to work that once I stop sharing. I'd love people to reach out to me and contact me, and I'd love to also connect with the panels, the fantastic panel today. So yeah, thank you very much, and that was my very brief talk. Thank you.
Nicole, I really appreciate that. And I think that with us being RegTech Talks, regulation is something that it's a sticky subject in any industry that has to deal with those types of regulations. And I think that a lot of the time regulators are chasing tech, because tech is so fast moving, and it's only going to get faster every single day. Something's going to change, and it's really important for us, those people working within technology, to have that open discussion with regulators and collaborate with them. And the same sort of theme that Charles had mentioned about that, an open source mindset, to be working collaboratively with the regulators themselves, so that they create quality controls that are fit for purpose when it comes to technology, and fit in with the tech that's there. So really appreciate your input there, Nicole. I'm really interested to find out what you guys are up to. Your dashboard looks super sleek, so I'd love to have a little go on one of those sometime. Finally, we're going to finish off with Ben, and he's going to give us some introductions to the Hartpury Agritech Centre and Digital Innovation Farm, and he's going to finish off the session tonight. So thanks, Ben. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Georgia. First and foremost, it's great to be a part of this great event, and great to follow on some great speakers as well. Some really interesting topics, which I hope prompts quite a lot of questions. In terms of my presentation, which again will be quite short and swift, it will just be an introduction to the new Hartpury Agritech Centre, our plans and developments for the future at Hartpury, and also I'll chip in some opportunities and challenges relevant to new crop management as well, relevant to technology use, which hopefully will prompt a few questions at the end. So firstly, to give a bit of a background, the centre was officially opened in February 2020. It's been co-supported between Hartpury University and Hartpury College, based in Gloucestershire, and also the Gloucestershire First local enterprise partnership as well. And we're also situated at the heart of our agriculture campus, based at the College University as well, boasting its own on-site commercial farm. Now, in terms of summarising how we operate, how we sort of go about our processes, it helps with describing an issue in which, from a farming side and commercial user side, it can be difficult to know how to get started with technology. Ultimately, we've got a lot of farmers that aren't using technology or have their own critical views on technology, or knowing how to make their first steps or further steps to ensure they're getting the most out of that as well, what they choose to invest in or what they choose to integrate onto their farm. And that's very much where the Hartpury Agritech Centre is choosing to fit itself, is that we're there to improve that access to latest available technologies and trying to improve that access comprehensively, whether through practical demonstration, technical knowledge exchange, through training, specialist events, workshops, and larger conferences as well. So very much trying to fill that gap between innovation, research, and commercial practice. To put into a bit of a nice, colourful and simple visual, very, very much grounded as a centre, working hand in hand with farmers, again, as I mentioned, with every decision making, whether pre-investment to post-investment, to helping ensure that they're utilising that technology fully, and also making sure that they're utilising all the benefits as well. So we're very much working with those technologies that are available, commercially available, and robust. So whether that, as mentioned there, includes robotics, imagery, as mentioned there, visual technologies, and previously mentioned in other talks, sensors, data software, and also precision tools. It could be machinery additions as well. Now, ultimately, what we want to see and what we want to encourage is obviously enhanced productivity in the farming industry, and a lot more technologies become available that's robust and also, as mentioned there, sustainable. And I'll go on to mention a bit more about later on in terms of our future developments and how we're looking to link to the ever sort of curious and exploratory space of working with new ideas, research, etc., which is obviously a popular and growing area as well within agritech. One of the common questions I get asked is, okay, how are you looking to showcase all this different technology with just Hartpury's commercial farm? It's very much a valid question, but we're there to showcase all different technologies across all the different farming subsectors, and that's through our digital farming network, which has been recently launched, and it's an open opportunity for any farming business, whether based in the local region or further afield, or as far away as possible you can get from Hartpury, to hear about what we're doing in terms of events and showcasing, or in terms of actually working with Hartpury more formally. They can be a part of any applied research projects linked to the academic departments of the university and college, or they can also trial and test the up and coming technology products and services coming through, as well as part of our accelerator program, which is an extra project which I'll introduce a bit later on. And ultimately, we want to show these technologies with the glamorous side off, effectively kicking the tire on what these technologies can do in real world practice. That's ultimately what farmers want to see. It's ultimately what the checklist they want to see, what they want to engage with. They want to see what this is like in real world practice. Now, as I explained, whether that's through practical demonstration on Hartbury's farm or our network of farms, we want to cover those various sectors as well as best we can to do that, and also various scale and system of farming enterprise as well. So whether you're a small holding all the way to a larger outfit, we want to practically showcase that as best as possible. So I've talked a lot there about our work with industry, but we very much work with the future generations as well, and that's in the form of our Hartbury University and college students. So they'll have the same opportunity as farmers to get hands-on with this latest technology, whether it's part of their research or part of their learning and curriculum, and ultimately making them enhance their employability as the agriculture sector grows and also goes through a massive technological change, as therefore the job opportunities change as well. So we're making sure we're meeting that skills requirement. So upskilling not just in the current generation of active agriculturalists, but also the future generations as well. So I mentioned a bit about research as well. Obviously, there is a common gap between research, innovation, commercial practice. And us as an institution, we want to close that gap as finite as possible. So that involves connection to our farming connections, working with agri-tech companies, maybe collaboratively, or whether we use their technology as part of the data capture. We very much want to close that gap and enable students to tackle real-world industry challenges. I want to emphasize that as well, that Hartbury Agri-Tech Centre is very much phase one of a 10-year strategy that Hartbury has to eventually create a digital innovation farm. This is evolving our agriculture campus into an area of best practice, utilising digital technologies and also bespoke facilities to help with the current generation and also the future generation of those working in the agriculture sector as an advanced learning environment focusing on use of digital technologies, how technology can benefit the environment, and also showcasing the primary production end as well via our commercial farm. As mentioned previously, in terms of the next project, which has been announced, which will be launching further this year, which is an exciting thing, and in addition to the Agri-Tech Centre itself, is there to help and accelerate the product development work of SME businesses. So effectively our reaching hand to those working with that area of space and incubators helping startup businesses and their product development work. We want to put them in connection to our resources at Hartbury, accelerate their product development work, and ultimately what we want to see is a lot more viable technologies come to the floor that's available for farmers to use. So as I mentioned, I thought I'd chip in a few opportunities and challenges certainly we're aware of in relation to technology use as a next level crop management opportunity. I'm going to nick what Nicole mentioned, a nice quote of measure to manage. Obviously, there's a lot more factors related to the environment that we can now measure and quantify. And also with that enables farmers to improve different aspects of their business more proactively, become aware of things before they become a serious issue. And that could lead to, obviously, mentioned there, improved biodiversity and soil health. And in relation to that positive change on management, we can also really proactively reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and also limit our effects on climate change overall. And also limiting to, we're obviously interested in IoT technology, as previously mentioned, as a way of continuously monitoring environmental measures in relation to potential pollution risks. So obviously monitoring water quality as a risk to that. And also limiting artificial inputs as well, with farming again contributing to that sustainability agenda. So it would be wrong for me not to mention about the challenges as well, certainly that we're aware of as we operate. Policy alignment, especially in the UK in relation to farming industry, we're going through significant change, not both in how we produce food, but also how we're encouraged to change as an industry overall. So it's making sure that technology adoption is aligned to that, so farmers can often then benchmark, enable where they choose to focus more, what technology best suits them in their practice, because it goes back to the old saying that every farmer and farming business is different. So it's making sure that they're making the right decisions for their business, and that obviously is covering technology use as well. I mentioned there balancing big data with data science. I think it's brilliant. I'm really excited by not only hearing about the talks today about various solutions coming through and available, I think that's fantastic, and that it's obviously contributing to improving productivity and efficiency. But if we're not careful, it's a lot more data potentially to analyze for the farmer. So it's making sure we're balancing that amount of data with how much is actionable for the farmer and providing more insights to the farmer, rather than adding another job to the job list, so to speak. I mentioned a key one, connectivity. Still continues to be needing improvement in rural networks. I think it will need to be improved in order to be the framework to support multiple digital tools in farming. I can speak on behalf of the UK farming industry and relatives and friends that really still struggle to have even a decent cellular network connection. So if they're going to have, experience the benefits from all these technologies coming through, they need to make sure that this connectivity is improved. And linked to that, we have interoperability. So the communication between technologies as well is a key issue that's certainly been on farmers' minds that we connect with. So they may invest in certain technologies that will work best in function, but certainly the best that will work in flexibility and are the most sustainable are the ones that communicate with each other. So actually, again, aid the decision-making rather than looking at multiple data sets. Training and upskilling, this is something that Hartpury Agri-Tech Centre is certainly keen to be focusing on, is upskilling, obviously, not only how these technologies work and also the benefits, is equipping them with the troubleshooting knowledge as well. Not to be too hesitant about the up and coming things coming through, so that they understand how they work, the components, even if it's in fundamental terms. This will certainly help with the uptake and also the utilization as well. And I just want to jump on, obviously, what Charles mentioned about financial hurdles as well and infeasible payback periods. That really just increases the importance of pre-investment decisions as well, making sure you're making and considering the right things, what's right for your business. And it's certainly a challenge that needs to be overcome. So as I mentioned now, I hope it's given you a good introduction for everyone that's listening today. If anyone wishes to follow us in terms of what we're up to in terms of news and events, then they can do so via social media. If they wish to reach out and discuss how they wish to work with us, please reach out via email there mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. And I really appreciate again how collaboration has been a real core theme to what everyone's talked about here. We talk about the collaboration between academia and the private sector, and again with the likes of incubators, where sometimes they themselves can be quite siloed away, particularly tech incubators, where, as it sounds like what you guys are doing is, if people are able to spin up MVPs, they can come out and actually be tested literally in the field, and then that innovation, that insight as to what's working and what isn't, is then fed back into the academic and also the incubator side, which is just really how that kind of thing should work. So I really appreciate that insight there as well. And I think that kind of it goes on to my first question. We've got a question here from Richard, but I'm just going to roll into the question that I had sort of for everyone, and it was I wanted to touch upon one of the first points that Charles mentioned at the beginning of his talk, and it was that farmers are not Luddites, and it's really refreshing to hear that you think that, and I wondered if everyone could give us a bit of insight as to what you think the actual demographic is. We mentioned earlier on, before we started this session, that there are a lot more young women coming into agri-tech, which is really refreshing for us to hear. And I wanted to hear, from Nicole, what is the actual pickup on indoor farming? Do you think that there's less barriers there when it comes to talking about technology, and just generally what kind of pushback that you get? I think that's loads of questions. Let's start off with the first one. What does everyone think the sort of farming demographic is when you're selling in or talking about agri-tech? Do you want to go first, Charles, because you sort of started off with that point?
Yeah, certainly. It's an important question, and actually it ranges. I mean, there's the there's the sort of stereotype image of the older farmer who sort of takes care of the finances and oversees sort of the larger decisions, and then you've got the younger generation, which we're seeing coming from both sort of sexes that are coming in, and actually and they're interested in sort of trying new stuff and not necessarily that focused on its immediate return on investment. I think what we've seen is that actually they want to know how we're going to save them time and not basically just move that time somewhere else, and which I think that Ben touched on. And it's not providing someone with something that creates loads of data and they then have to become a data scientist to interpret. It's basically giving them something that's actually going to save time or resource or target operation. So I think the demographic, particularly with the larger farmers, is they are very receptive, but it has to have a clear business case. And I think that's one of the problems the sector has seen, is that early on you might not necessarily have an immediate obvious route to market, or the product might not be that refined. So you need to find areas where you can test it without destroying your reputation. You don't it's not a huge sector in terms of reputation. So if you do provide things that don't work, people find out about it quickly. So it's an interesting one. I would say I'd be interested to hear what the rest of the panels think.
Yeah, super interesting insight into that the actual business element of this sector itself. So I think that my next kind of question, moving on to that, was for Nicole. And I know that a lot of people think that the whole vertical farming side of things it's all super techy, filled with sensors, automation, all that stuff. Do you think that selling tech into indoor farming is potentially a little bit easier than the more established farming that people think of?
I think it is, yeah. I think if you compare the demographic of the atypical indoor farmer to the conventional farmer, it's very different. But I have to say, so I think it is easier because the most indoor farmers, or at least the ones that started out and have been in the game for a longer time, are quite tech savvy. So some of them actually are techies and don't really know all that much about plants. So they come from that angle. Others are investors, or people who've come to some money, and then they think, oh, it's a good idea to start indoors. It's exciting, it's sexy, it's techy. So I think it's easier. Having said that, I agree with what was said before in terms of it's a very small world. It's a small market. Well, it's a large market, but it's kind of a small pond that we're fishing in terms of everybody knows everybody else and news spreads. So I agree wholeheartedly that news spreads very quickly. So you have to be very sure and very certain of the technology that you actually sell. So we've spent many years. We're in our 10th year now. Spend many years validating our solutions and making sure that everything works as it should do, because we want to deliver the best possible solutions which are fit for purpose and beyond.
That sounds like a huge legacy of hard work that's gone into your platform. That is loads, and I feel for you, because I can't even imagine you trying to pitch this 10 years ago, let alone to people now. Yeah. But luckily, if the door's already open, you're speaking to people who are already tech savvy, and actually you have to kind of teach them more about like the actual biological side of things with the plants. It sounds like it's a bit of an easier sell, but all of you guys seem to be like really supportive of each other, because there is that concept of high sea raises all boats, doesn't it? So if we're all sort of looking after each other's reputations, that the offerings that you guys are trying to create solutions for, hopefully will just be trusted a little bit more, if everyone is supporting each other in terms of trustworthiness in tech in this sector.
I think collaboration is hugely important, and we're still a small company, but we collaborate lots with other small companies or also larger companies, because we believe that everybody should be concentrating on what they're good at, on their core competences, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So collaboration is key, and that's why I'm so active in my 2 associations as well. So yeah, totally agree.
And Anita, in the same theme of questions, I just wanted to know kind of what pushbacks do you get? What when you try and pitch and gain all of this great stuff, what do you hear people saying? The reasons that they're not interested. If you do get any, you might not get any pushback at all.
No, we do get feedback. I mean, when I started working at Agrivi 6 years ago, it was completely different. You could not tell farmers that you are having software because they would run away, because what is software, right? You need to say that it's some kind of application. But today we do see that market is ready and that they are really taking these new technologies, because there is even more companies that are ready to take advantages of technology, and also other people are starting to use it. That's what we see also in farming a lot. Like if my neighbor is using it, that means that it's something good, and you need to tell them. It's sometimes really hard to see immediate effect. That's what we also see at the beginning, because when you start using technology, you need to also do the work. The biggest challenge is change management, because it's not that you just have some different fertilizer and then everything will be better, everything will grow. But you also need to take your time, and you need to put in data every day. You need to check it. And this is the thing that we see, that it's the biggest challenge at this moment.
Yeah, and I guess it's just maybe the turn of phrase and terminology, getting people used to it, making it feel a little bit more familiar. Yeah, I get that. We've got some questions here from Richard, who he's been a long-time RegTech supporter, so I appreciate you coming on again here, Richard. And he's mentioned that he's already a vegan. He has been for the last couple of years, and he's seeing personal benefits and GHG emission reduction. Now he wishes to only buy local and support local businesses. And he's wondering if anyone, if you guys are only looking at large scale now, or if there's any focus on local produced for local consumption. And again, he mentions without packaging as well, which is something that I know I hate, that my fridge is full of plastic and it's completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. So I don't know if anyone has any comments on that.
I'll chip in and say we actively work with producers, whatever scale they are, whether they're local to Hartpury or further afield, and actively technology has the ability to empower them on whatever scale they're operating on, and also empower what they're producing as well, whether that's more sustainable than others. I think that's the beauty of it. Rather than obviously mention about their enhanced productivity or becoming more efficient, in terms of the produce, in whatever way that's more sustainable, they're able to showcase that and able to showcase that at a wider audience with the use of technology. And I think chipping into challenges that I mentioned before, there is hurdles to be overcome to ensure full benefits are realized, but certainly we're working with farmers on every scale, whatever investment they're considering, from an app all the way to larger scale investments such as robotics or complete overhaul for their business. So yeah, certainly something we're focusing on.
And I think that we're in a really, I mentioned this last time, but we are in a really fortuitous situation in the UK, that there is a lot of grants and there's a lot of funding that you can get back from government in terms of things like R&D tax credits and stuff like that. And that applies for everyone who's doing any type of R&D. I want to speak to you as well, Ben, about the connectivity point that you brought up, because nothing that anyone's talked about here could be possible at all without connectivity. And yeah, you can sit here in a 5G enabled city centre tower block, but when you're out on the field, we talk about things like lower frequency distribution networks like LoRaWAN and stuff like that. But I wondered if you could talk to us about, where you see the future of connectivity in much rural areas.
Well, we're really excited by IoT, certainly at Hartpury's agriculture campus, and able to capture data via networks like you mentioned, like LoRaWAN, being able to distribute data, even if it's every 30 minutes or once a day, having that capture real time from various aspects around the environment is certainly important. Yeah, in terms of networks, it needs to be improved. I mean, it is improving, which is great. But in terms of those benefits to be realized, productive technologies, rather than having data silos, so to speak, and having to open up another web page or another program to then send data in various sources. The ultimate goal here is, as Nicole mentioned, we all want to collaborate. We all want to ensure that we're achieving a common goal, is obviously increased food production productively and also sustainably. And I think to do that is making sure we're not adding another job, like I said, to the job list. We're very much aiding that efficiency. So I'm very excited by obviously the prospects coming through. Really looking forward to the improvements being made. We're hoping to obviously showcase that potential in best practice and using that technology as it improves as well at Hartpury. So yeah, really encouraging, but certainly a challenge that needs to be overcome.
Yeah, and I you know, it's the same in sort of energy production, you know, IoT and things like offshore wind farms for maintenance and stuff like that. It's so important that the connectivity is there. I'm going to finish off with a question for everyone about the future of sort of data modeling. And I know that a lot of you have touched on things like how you know, AI and machine learning can sort of push the boundaries of agritech in terms of things like predictive yield, predictive maintenance, predictive anything when it comes to at least putting some sort of modeling on that type of data. And I just wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on, you know, how far we can go in, you know, your respective fields with that type of machine learning aspect. Do you want to start, Charles, and we'll go through the way that everyone did their presentations, and we can finish off.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, machine learning, and obviously the overarching sort of more general term of any sort of automated process in artificial intelligence is something that was core to both what I did before we set up and around what we do. I think the big sort of disclaimer with that is that agriculture is very variable, and one thing that any sort of machine learning thing is not good at is dealing with data that it hasn't seen things like before, and so you can very quickly become very good at operating in certain regions or certain soil types or certain crops. And so having an aggregated scaled version across not just the UK but globally is quite important. So there is huge opportunities, and I think it touches on the connectivity thing. When you have that connectivity there, you can make systems a lot less expensive because you can move a lot of that processing onto cloud analytics. You know, we use computers now that cost a hell of a lot less to produce because most of the processing of the systems that we use, like the one we're on now, is all done sort of remotely. I think that we'll see it, and we'll see, but they're in the same, seeing in the medical area in terms of their diagnostics, we have to be very careful about the bias that comes along with it. So we do use it, we wield it, and I think the opportunities are still untapped, but I think there are some significant sort of caution that to be used with particularly with predictive items. And also it's an unpredictable sector. You know, different climate and environments bring about new pest and disease ingresses. New plant material brings out new things that we haven't seen before in particular regions. You know, we're seeing, you know, the southeast of England becoming the best place in the world to produce sparkling wine, and who would have foresaw that? So it can be used, but again, as an assisted system, not as an automated one to replace people that are sort of learning and have that expertise.
Great input. Did you want to pick up on that then, Anita, because you were the next one?
Sure, I agree completely. I mean, at the moment, we are mostly focused on data insights to see what's happening in real time on the field. We are completely focused on software, but we do see connectivity and what's happening at the same time on the field. So we do have a spectrum of our products that are IoT orientated, because we want to make sure also that connectivity to track the complete, like what's happening with fleet management can be tracked in our software, what's happening on the soil, and also weather conditions to be tracked in the real time, all the time, like Ben was mentioning, to track it, what's happening. And that's definitely where we see the future is going, that adopting is happening little by little of these technologies, and it's really interesting because, like I already mentioned the past, like what happened like 5 years ago, we could not imagine what will be happening today. So it's really great to see where the future is going.
And I guess it might be one of those tough words to bring up if you're already struggling to talk about software platforms. You don't want to start talking about predictive analytics. That might be a step too far. Maybe in a couple of years, that'll be something that you're being asked about from your customers. And Nicole, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I can totally echo what both Charles and Anita said in terms of the assistive function of AI and predictive modeling and machine learning, or whatever we want to call it. But I think I think it should never replace the grower, should never replace the human elements in growing, because I think, I mean, one of my slides, I don't think I actually mentioned it, but I actually mentioned the detachment from food. And I think it's very, very important to keep the producer very close to the food, the producer and the consumer ultimately. But what I find really attractive going forward is also the concept of digital twinning, especially in all types of agriculture, but in controlled environment agriculture, we're still learning a lot by machine, but also, by human brain. And digital twinning will help us a lot in terms of, finding the best locations for a farm, for example, finding the best layout, finding the best crop, being able to model my yield. If I make certain changes, it's going to be something that I think is going to bring a lot of exciting value to the industry, and will de-risk it and also boost investor confidence and kind of ease the integration into the larger system, especially in an urban environment.
Yeah, there's so much in digital twinning, isn't there, in terms of like de-risk and getting people on board, or getting people involved, and the people that you work with in terms of the regulators as well, and just spinning up a scenario to say, we've tested this. Yes, it's in a digital environment, but look, these are the potentials. So that's really interesting to look out for in the future as well. And Ben, did you want to finish off with anything on that?
Yeah, I'll just add into the same theme, really. Just agree with all points made, and the fact that we are having to go against a stigma that it's not a replacement for people, and that's not the ambition, really. It's very much there to aid the gut instinct, let's say, or aid the decision making, enable us to become a bit more proactive. That's all the ambitions there. And I agree that with the point that Charles made, is that there's so many variables to keep on top of in terms of, let's say, outside of in primary food production, that it's very difficult to not have that insight from somebody to help with the steer in the first case, or certainly put into practice, or help with the troubleshooting if things do go wrong. So I think there are always going to be need for human intervention, absolutely. So it's about making sure that these new things coming through with AI and machine learning and these new innovations, making sure that they are on the side of the users. They're there to actively work with the users and aid their decision making, aid the gut instinct, like I mentioned before, but being open to that insight as well, and open to those new variables of which undoubtedly there will be. So yeah, that's certainly something, again, echoing what the points have been made, really. So yeah.
Okay, well, we don't have any more questions from the panel, so I'm going to end it off there. But I just want to say, for everyone, I appreciate that everyone did kind of all agree with each other, and there wasn't any sort of anyone at odds. But it really does go to show, and it does echo that there is a huge amount of collaboration to happen within this industry. And it's also just a really exciting place to be, because from what everyone said, it feels like we're just scratching the surface of what can be done. And I think that what's really exciting is that agri-tech isn't, it's not fintech, it's not about markets and that kind of stuff. It's about something that goes into every single one of our bodies, and it's so important. It's just really inspirational that we can hear about like the true potential of how we can build a more nutritional and sustainable future for everyone. So I really appreciate everyone's time today. If there are any other questions for any of our panelists, please give us an email at RegTech Talks. We do have our next event coming up next week on animal and insect nutrition. So the future of animal feeds is coming up in our next session, so it should be a really, really interesting one. And for today, I just have to say thank you so much to Charles, Anita, Nicole, and Ben for giving your time, your insight, and your inspiration to the panel today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This video has been recorded. You'll see a roundup blog on the RegTech Talks website. Everyone who signed up today will also get an email with the recording and the roundup blog post. So if you want to share that, or if you want to rewatch, please do. So thank you everyone who came today, and thank you everyone on the panel again, and we'll see you next time.